Welcome back, y'all, and happy Tuesday, happy New Year's, and all that good stuff to everybody. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. Today, we're going to be talking about Zachariah and Zion Branch and how they could fit into Tennessee's scheme on offense and defense, because Zach Branch is the wide receiver that plays at slot that I think Tennessee's really, we're trying to go get him, but they're a package deal. His brother plays safety. I think that Tennessee could use some safety help, but how much could Zion help Tennessee? We will be breaking down all those things today. Please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I know that a lot of y'all are probably working right now, so it's perfectly fine if you come in, late or, after you get off work or on a break, whatever. And if we're not still streaming, then just leave a comment, you know what I'm saying, and just put your thoughts right there. But we will try to get to the chat as much as possible for the people that are able to watch us live. So, first and foremost, I do want to talk about some of the roster movement because Caleb Perry, who has been a linebacker with Tennessee for the past few seasons, he has entered into the portal officially now, and we talked about that last week. Actually, whenever we were looking at the linebacker room, we kind of took him off of that, So I already felt like he was going to be leaving. There were some rumblings that he was going to be leaving, but he is officially now in the portal, and he played a lot for Tennessee. Just wasn't, never was able to work himself into a starting role. So very good football player. I just don't know how much of a loss that's going to be per se for Tennessee with next year's roster, because we still have guys that have played a lot. We've got 3 guys that played a good amount this past season, 2 guys that are veterans that's played a lot over the past couple of seasons. And then we still have Jordan Burns, who we've already talked about. He looks really good, didn't play very much, played more towards the end of the season in a very small spurt. But then all those freshmen coming up, I think that they're going to have to be ready to daggum play. But that's not a position that I would anticipate Tennessee's going to want to go to the portal with. So we should be fine there. That's really good news. Also, Miles Kitzelman is going to be coming back for at least one more season. I think it is just one more season because he got that JUCO waiver, which that's great news because obviously Holden Stays left. And we felt like Holden Stays probably left because he knew that Miles Kitzelman was going to be coming back. So Miles Kitzelman, do-it-all guy. He was our leading wide receiver, or he was our leading receiver at tight end. He actually had 4 touchdowns, which is the second most on our team last year. The most was with Dante Thornton, who had 6. So very productive player, from a numbers perspective, but he's a hell of a blocker. So happy to have him coming back. I think that our tight end room next season is going to be kind of young, but very deep. Ethan Davis, we've seen what he can do, and I think that he will continue to pick things up and get even better. But also Cole Harrison, who very good football player. We talked a lot about him. You want to talk about another very balanced tight end that can block well, that can run good routes. He has really good hands and things like that. And then, of course, we still have, Brame coming in along with Jack Van Dorsalier. So that room's we're going to be just fine there. I don't think that we need to go to the portal and add any pieces there by any means. Excuse me. Now let's talk about Mike Matthews, because the last time that we spoke a couple of days ago, I told y'all I felt like Mike would probably take his name out of the transfer portal before that day had ended. I want to say that was on Sunday. So I felt like by Monday morning, Mike Matthews would officially, come back and still be a Tennessee Volunteer. But that was based off of the inside information that was saying that Mike Matthews really was hitting the portal because Nico was hitting the portal. If you've been watching it closely, obviously Nico never, I don't think that he ever even asked for any transfer portal papers. So to me, that sounds like a little bit of BS. There could have been some truth to it, but just a simple fact that Mike Matthews has not returned and Nico obviously never left, that says that it's something else going on. And it kind of feels like to me he didn't like the way that the season went last year, which I don't blame him because, yeah, he's a freshman, but he's a 5-star guy that's very talented. He should have seen the field a lot more earlier on in the season. He should have got more targets, and I put that on the coaching staff. So at this point, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that he wants some more money, because Boo, he's getting more money. He came inside of the same class. So Mike probably wants some more money too. But I want to say that he requested his transfer paperwork on 10:30 or at 10:30 on Saturday. Is that right? On Saturday or on Sunday, whatever night it was, either way. He asked for his paperwork at 10:30, so he would have 48 hours to get it filled out, if I'm not mistaken. So that would put him at about 10:30 tonight. It could be midnight. I don't know exactly how that goes. And then once he actually does, fully submit his paperwork, once everything's done, then Tennessee has 48 hours from that point to put him into the portal. So, I mean, it's a whole lot of dragging feet, and, it's For me, I don't know what to make out of it. I would anticipate that what would make the most sense is him sticking with Tennessee, because we kind of went through some of the other suitors, some of the other, possible schools that maybe he could go to. To me, I don't think that there's any better situation than what he's in right now. So I think that he, common sense would say that he should be coming back to Tennessee, but maybe maybe he really got his feelings hurt with the lack of playing time and all that type of stuff as a true freshman. And maybe he really wants to go somewhere else, or maybe he really is going to entertain other programs. Now, what the insiders are saying at this point is that if he does actually hit the portal, the chance that he's going to stick around at Tennessee are very, very slim. And I would concur with that. I think that if he takes it all the way to actually getting into the portal, and teams can actually, teams can actually talk to him, without it being tampering, which I know the teams are already talking to him now. But once that happens, yeah, I think that Tennessee's probably in a really bad situation. And that leaves us very thin at the wide receiver position. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But let's go ahead and flip the page. Let's talk about Zachariah Branch first and foremost, because, talking about, guys like Matthews potentially leaving, who can play inside and outside. Zachariah Branch is primarily an inside wide receiver, and he is a very good wide receiver. Actually, I'm going to pull up some of these clips right here from the Polynesian Bowl, because he did play in the Polynesian Bowl with Nico back in 2023. He is from the class of 2023. Now, he was the number one wide receiver with most sites, except for one, I think it was Rivals, had him at number 2. So, 5'10", about 175 pounds. He is extremely explosive, very explosive. And actually, if you think back, if you've been, watching this channel since the Polynesian Bowl back in 2023, I guess 2024, then you might recall me saying, hey, I don't know who number 1 is, but if Tennessee could somehow get him, that would be huge. It kind of felt like him and Nico had some pretty good chemistry, but man, he was explosive. And not just in this game. I want to say he played also in the Under Armour game. He made some things happen there too, but he's done some, beautiful things at USC as a true freshman. I think that he was a return All-American. So, he did a beautiful job of making things happen from that perspective. And he's a player that you want to get the football in his hands out in space. And actually, I'm going to tell you what his stats were from his freshman season. So in 2023, as a true freshman, he had 31 catches for 321 yards, averaging 10.3 yards per catch. He only had 2 touchdowns. And then rushing, he had 9 carries for 70 yards, 7.8 yards per carry, 1 touchdown right there. And as a return guy on punts, he had 16 attempts, 322 yards with 1 touchdown. And on kickoffs, 24 attempts, 442 yards with 1 touchdown. Now, if we fast forward to this previous season in 2024, him as a sophomore, he had 47 catches for 503 yards, 10.7 yards per catch with only 1 touchdown. And rushing, he had only 2 rushes with 17 yards, 8.5 yards per attempt. Returning, he had only 13 punts returned for 74 yards, no touchdowns, only 5 kickoffs returns for 105 yards with no touchdowns. So the whole point right there, y'all, is he looked really good as a freshman, doing a lot of things, especially on special teams. But I think what ends up happening once teams know that, hey, this is a guy that we don't want to kick the football to, they don't kick it to you. So you don't have as many opportunities. So that's a place that maybe once he comes to the SEC, maybe teams will say, hey, we're not quite sure if he can do the same thing in this league. Let's kick it to him. I hope that they do if he does ultimately come here, because that would be huge just from that perspective. But also, it does help you out when teams want to kick away from players, because a lot of times you'll get some really bad punts. You could get some kickoffs that are kicked out of bounds. We know that puts the football on the 40. So it helps. It helps out a lot with the field position. And we'll talk a little bit more about how he's going to fit into our scheme and system here in just a minute. But one of the things that I did want to also kind of point to right here, y'all, is just kind of correlating him to like a Squirrel White, because everyone keeps on saying, well, let's see, how does he stack up compared to a Squirrel White? So these are the speeds in miles per hour. It's going to be in the column that's kind of highlighted in blue towards your right. It's going to say max speed up at the top. This is going to show the max speed of a few of the wide receivers that I, chose from Tennessee, along with Squirrel White, compared to Zachariah Branch, who's going to be right there at number 4. So up at the top, you're going to see that Chris Brazzell was the fastest over the course of his tenure just playing football in college, period, at 22.4 miles per hour. The next player is Nathan Leacock at 22.2 miles per hour. Now, I know that he has entered into the transfer portal, But the reason that I'm putting him up here is just to remind everybody, and if there's anybody that is listening that is associated with this team that can maybe talk to somebody on the staff and say, hey, Nathan Leacock is a player at 6'3", 217 pounds that can run like this, that we need to find a way to hopefully we can bring him back, because Tennessee really needs more outside bodies, especially if we can add Zachariah to this team. But yeah, I would say that Nathan Leacock is a player that we need to try to, I would try to go get him back, because we are going to have to at least find one more outside wide receiver either way, even if Mike Matthews stays. And it's not guaranteed that he will. So the next player is going to be Squirrel White. He's been clocked at 22.1 miles per hour. And then we get to Zachariah Branch at 21.3 miles per hour. So if you look at just last season, Zachariah and Squirrel were both right at 21.3 miles per hour. That was their max speed from that season. So last year's fastest version of Squirrel is the fastest version of Zachariah Branch, at least according to what we're seeing here from Pro Football Focus. But if you look back, I want to say probably in 2022, Squirrel White's top end speed was even better than Zachariah Branch's is. And a lot of folks just think that Zachariah Branch is going to be a faster player. Now, one of the things for me that's I think that you do want to keep in mind whenever you are looking at speeds, like top speeds, is how quickly do you get to the top speed. There's no metric that I've seen with Pro Football Focus that indicates that, but I would have to anticipate that Zachariah might get to his top speed a little bit faster. I don't think it's by much, but maybe a little bit faster than a Squirrel White. Where he's going to differ at, where Zach is going to differ at from Squirrel, is number one, that he's bigger. He's about 10, 15 pounds bigger than Squirrel White. You can tell he's visibly thicker. He's definitely more muscular, probably going to be a little bit more durable also. He's still a smaller player, though. They are the exact same height. But he's also going to be a lot shiftier. So we are going to take a look at some of his actual, like in-game highlights and things like that. So this is the all 22. And what you're going to see with Zach Branch at USC and what they've tried to do with them, in high school and pretty much everywhere else, coming from Bishop Gorman, very good program, is that they want to try to put him in space. They use him a lot in the slot. You'll see him used as kind of like a gadget piece, a whole lot of, wide receiver quick screens. You'll see a ton of underneath stuff, hitches, slants, routes like that. But he's actually a very good route runner. He does a good job with every route that I've seen him run. And actually, we will talk a little bit, if we have enough time today, y'all, we will talk a little bit about SC's wide receiver coach, because I spoke about him before, and there's some rumors that, maybe Tennessee's kind of looking at him at this point. But anyway, I love his game. I love how explosive he is. I love the idea of getting the football to a player out in space. And I think part of the reason that he didn't score as much with SC is that they did try to use him on some vertical stuff, which, again, he runs good vertical routes, but because he's a shorter player within their scheme, it doesn't really fit for a shorter player to be running those vertical routes. You have to kind of create some space for him, because typically everyone that's covering him is going to be bigger, right? Like 5'10", the average secondary player in Power 4 is going to be right around 6 feet tall. So they're going to have 2 to 3 inches on him just off the top. And with that length, it makes it even more difficult to be able to drop the football right in there to a shorter player whenever you're going vertical inside of USC's system. Now, where I think he's going to flourish at with Tennessee is we utilize that space. So we are seeing some, not necessarily wide splits, but you do see USC kind of spread the field out. But the wide split for me is talking about, from the end of the line of scrimmage to the first, wide receiver threat. Tennessee is going to create 25-ish yards, from the end of the line to the first wide receiver threat, and then there will be another one outside of that. So there's a lot more space from that perspective. So even I would say, actually, even especially with our vertical routes, man, Zachariah Branch, who has really good speed, very, very shifty in and out of his breaks and all that type of stuff, he's going to get one-on-one coverage down the field, and he's going to have a whole lot of space to make people miss, before he even catches that football. But then if you come back to the intermediate game, something that I feel like Tennessee really wants to get better at this season, he's going to help out with that tremendously, because of the way that he can run all those double moves and stuff. It's going to be tough. I think, maybe to start the season off, if he does come to Tennessee, he might see some single coverage, but then teams are going to want to try to bracket him, because I think he's going to be such a weapon with all that space. That's going to create a lot more, easier one-on-one matchups with some other players. And that should also open up Tennessee's running game as well. So he is an extremely versatile piece that we can, again, use as a gadget guy. We've seen him some on, speed sweeps and things like that. And I think that the jet sweeps with teams loving to run the cover threes and the cover fours versus Tennessee, the edge is there. A player like this on the edge with some lead blocking, with some misdirection, I think that that's deadly. And obviously he can contribute on special teams as well. Like, look at this. Look at his hands. I mean, it's rare to see a player with that sort of size that has really big hands, and that is that twitchy and all that. So, and he's also tough. I've seen him on film running through contact, all that good stuff. So just literally everything that we would want at the slot, he has that. Now, we know about Braylon Staley, who's another dog at that position. He's going to have to get his touches too. We also know about Boo Carter. If he's going to make a little bit of a transition from defense to offense, it's probably going to be in the slot. It's going to be a lot of different gadget things going on within our offense, but I think that that's perfect. That's exactly what we need because it's gotten so stale. It's gotten so straight up and down. They're bringing in players like this. They're bringing in so many able-bodied slot players. That is going to help Tennessee have to expand the offense and open things up tremendously. And, we're talking about three guys right here, inside of the slot with Zach, with Braylon Staley, and also with Boo that can make people miss, that will get the yards after the catch. And that helps Nico out. That helps the whole offense out when, hey, we ain't got to throw bombs every single time to get 20 or 30 yards. Give me a hitch. Give me a slant. Give me a screen. Throw it to him, block for him, let him go make some plays. So I think that the offense can get a lot more explosive by adding a guy like Zach Branch. I just hope that everybody on this team buys into that and everyone understands that, hey, if we all just do what we're supposed to do, we're all going to eat. They're not going to be able to stop any of us. So that needs to be what the mindset is. And I'm hoping that if we can actually get Zachariah Branch up on campus next month, which it sounds like I'll feel very confident that that's at least going to happen. I would anticipate that we will definitely be getting a visit from Zach Branch. I don't know if anything is solid yet. I don't think that it can be solid quite yet. But yeah, I think that we should expect January the 1st is when I think we get into a quiet period, which would mean that we can start to host some of these guys that are college players that could potentially be transferring. But I do think that Tennessee's in a really good spot to hopefully be able to land Zach Branch. I don't know how much money we have to spend, but I think that we're going to open up our pocketbooks to not just bring in him, but also bring in his brother Zion, who we'll talk about here in just a minute. But let me get to some of these chats because I kept y'all waiting long enough. Let me try to go through here real quick. So from Brian Stinson saying, hopefully the OC and wide receiver coaches can develop an improved offensive scheme to take advantage of their talents. Absolutely. We've had pretty good results from these USC transfers going back to Caleb Tremblay. Yeah. I want to say Bayless Jones came from SC. I know that Brew came from SC. So yeah, those are excellent points. And thank y'all for chiming in. Again, if you are just joining us, please do make sure to like and subscribe. That helps us out in a very major way. Big Vol Cole. What's going on, Big Vol Cole? Saying the transfer portal, take it and give it. Go Big Orange, 100%. Everyone's pretty much dealing with that. Then we've got Kevin Dusak. I hope that I pronounced your name correctly, sir. Saying, I certainly hope they land them. I do too, man. I think everyone's fired up about it, which we should be because Zach Branch is going to be really special. Like I said, a lot of the lack of touchdowns, it comes from the scheme that he's working in. And also, his quarterback play wasn't that great at SC last season. But yeah, he's going to ball out inside of this system. And I'm sure that he's looking at it, and that's something that, he's definitely thinking about. And he actually put out one of those little tweets doing what all the Tennessee players are doing with that little face, whatever, with the hands on your chin thing. He did that same thing. So I think that he is kind of locked in with Tennessee, not locked in like he's going to come, but he is paying attention to what's going on. So we got to be careful, Vol Twitter, especially y'all got to be careful throwing a whole lot of crazy stuff out there because folks are watching us. Sometimes that can hurt us, not just Vol Twitter, but everybody. Got to be very careful with what we're putting out there. We can't just be about getting clicks. We got to be about winning. We got to be about helping this team win. Put out content to help us win right now. Everybody's got to be locked in. Let's look at Matthew Wilkins. What's going on, Matthew? Sam Bull, I'll just say that people forget that Kelsey Pope was thought very highly of this offseason, and Georgia wanted him badly. So people don't need to listen to some of these players saying nonsense. Hey, you know what, Matthew? That's actually a very good point because, yeah, I think that Kelsey Pope is a good wide receivers coach. And, you have to take anything that players are saying, especially if they're no longer with the team. You got to take that with a grain of salt because you have to understand that they probably feel some type of way. Now, I'm not saying that there's no truth to it because I'll tell you, I think there might be some truth the more that I'm listening to the insiders and, from some of the offline conversations that I've had with players and things, I think that there might be a little bit of truth to some of that stuff, just a little bit. Okay. I'm not trying to paint a bad picture of Kelsey Pope, but I think that, where there's smoke, there is some type of fire. So he might need to make some changes with how he's handling people in some situations. And I'll also say this, what he's talked about Matthews. If Mike ends up leaving, I think that is an indictment on Kelsey Pope. You cannot lose a 5-star wide receiver from out of your room after his freshman season, after you just lost everybody else. You just can't do that. Okay. I'm not calling for nobody's job. Y'all know it. I don't do that. But that is going to be a major problem. Major problem. All right. And then, too, let me also talk about Georgia. Georgia always looks for wide receiver coaches because Georgia's wide receivers always don't really do much of anything. The reason for that is because Kirby Smart is it's his whole scheme. It's Mike Bobo, their whole deal. I mean, I don't know, how do you have all these 5-star wide receivers and you're not really developing any of them? The only guys that you're doing a good job with are players that were overlooked, that just came in and, did their own thing. Like they were good on their own. You know what I'm saying? It had nothing to do with your coaching staff because they don't do a great job with high-level talent. So I know that Georgia is a place that some people are saying, Matthews might try to go there. I think that Mike Matthews is a lot smarter than that, y'all. I don't think that he's going to go to Georgia. I don't even, to me, that's a total non-factor. I don't think that that's going to happen. Now, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't see that happening. Next one from Andrew Ginhold saying, I'm thinking it's about getting a raise for Matthews. He's holding all the chips and he can almost name his price. Yeah, I think that that's probably part of it too. I think that, a little bit of his ego might have been hurt, right? I think that that's really what it is. Wide receivers have that type of an ego, especially the really, really good ones. I mean, anyone that you could think of, they all had that sort of an ego where, hey, man, look, you could throw the ball to me every single time. So I'm worth, excuse me, I'm worth a whole lot more than anybody else. If you're going to pay Boo a lot, you got to pay me more. Maybe that's what's going on. And I think Tennessee has the funds to do it, which is why, for me, the fact that he's still not back, it's something else is going on. Something else that people aren't really talking about, I think, is going on. And I don't want to, make any red flags and all. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to make it like this is definite, but that's just how I'm looking at it because it doesn't make any logical sense to me. Why hasn't he returned to Tennessee? Maybe he just wants some more attention. I don't know. But to me, the whole thing right now, it's not a good look for anybody. I mean, do what you're going to do. I don't even think, to me, Mike Matthews, he don't strike me as the type of a dude that's trying to get like, oh, look at me. He don't strike me like that. So that's why I'm saying there might be a little bit of smoke that maybe he really is seriously considering entering into the portal. He's really entertaining some of these other offers, some of these other schools. But I think that once he looks at everything from top to bottom, just like he did coming out of high school, as long as Tennessee can give him a good plan, I do think that he's going to ultimately return here. Because look at all the other situations. It's just not, none of them to me look better than Tennessee. Let's get to the next one. Where is the next one at? Excuse me, y'all. Let me try. Okay, so I think it's this one right here from Bobby A. What's going on, Bobby A? I like 6'3" and the speed. Let's get Leacock back. Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what happened right there behind the scenes, but I think that possibly, if we reached out to him and if we had a good plan for him, then yeah, I mean, maybe he would come back. Maybe, I don't know how he feels about Coach Pope. I have absolutely no idea. I really don't. So, but maybe he's like some of the other ones that we saw that came out and said that they didn't really like Coach Pope. I mean, if you got that many wide receivers that don't like you, and if some of them we actually need, I think that that's when you start to look at, hey, maybe we got to move you around somewhere else, so that we can hold on to some of these players. From Bow Hunting 101, what's up, y'all? Some big money will have to be spent to get and keep the right talent if we want to compete each year. Go Vols. Yeah, I've actually seen some stuff. And thank you for chiming in as well. I've actually seen some stuff that's saying that Tennessee is up in our NIL. I don't know how true any of that is. A lot of this stuff is just rumors and speculation, y'all. So I don't talk about a whole lot of it, but as we're in here right here, as we're in here talking, we can just, I'll just speak on it. I have seen that in several places, but it could just be a total rumor. But I've seen numbers from 25 to 28 million. I mean, I don't know. Those are some of the numbers that I've seen being thrown out there. So that would obviously be great. From Mark Shepard, even if they land the Branch brothers without the depth, Vols will be the same. Vols will be in the same predicament. Hit the portal and get wide receivers with experience playing college football. That doesn't require a lot of training. Yeah, so I think that it's true about you. You know, we want to go out and get players that have played, especially on this level at that position. I think that that is very true. You want to get guys that have already kind of been through it. There's no need to bring in someone that's unproven, and you might be back to square one. But well, I don't want to say that we won't be fine without Zach Branch. I'm not going to say that because we don't know who else is going to enter into the portal. We've got games coming up today, actually at noon, Michigan, Alabama. That's the first one to kick it off. And I'll actually kind of go through and give you some of my picks at the end of this. But yeah, I mean, you know, the first playoff game is tonight as well. I don't know if there's any players that I'm looking at personally that I'm like, I want them at wide receiver from this school, but maybe the staff already sees some players, and maybe they've already been talking to some players. It does sound like we've already started to talk to or at least target several wide receivers. It sounds like we are already looking at running backs and maybe potentially some more offensive linemen. So I don't know about on our D line. We might bring in another one or two. I don't know, but I haven't really seen too much about us still targeting it at that position. And maybe it's because we have Bryson Easton coming back, we have Tyree West coming back, and Don Bailey. Maybe they feel like we're going to be fine there. But either way, long story short, y'all, I think that Tennessee does need to pursue several wide receivers. I don't know. I mean, a talent like Zach Branch, that's a difference maker. He's by far I think, number one player on Tennessee's board. He's by far the best wide receiver that's out there right now to me that would fit into Tennessee's scheme. I don't really see a whole lot of other people that are of that caliber or of that ilk. So yeah, I mean, I think that we got to swing big. Like we need to bring in at least one real dude. If we could bring in a guy like Zach Branch, then you can go out and just get somebody. Hey, look, we need a bigger body, more of a body to play on the outside, and that can just make catches for us. That can rotate in, can help us out if we get into a bind, and maybe even put some of the other players for some real starting time. I think that that's how that should look. But that's just my thoughts on it. I don't know how the staff is looking at it. But yeah, I would say that Zach Branch is one. That's almost like at this point for me, that's a must-have. You know, Zach Branch is a must-have, especially with Mike Matthews not being solid with Tennessee. If Mike Matthews does not stay at Tennessee, all of a sudden, Zach Branch is an absolute 1,000%. We absolutely have to have him. Have to have him. Because we won't have, I don't think, enough playmakers at the wide receiver spot that's proven. We got a lot of guys that we feel like have potential, but it has to be proven first. Let me come on down to Timmy G. What's up, Tim? What's going on, dog? Saying Happy New Year. Go Big Orange. Happy New Year to you, sir. Appreciate you for joining in with us. JT Lynn saying we should be able to land them. If not, yeah, for sure. All right, let me also get to this one from D. Taylor because D is a member of the channel. What's going on, D? Happy New Year. Saying height in the slot doesn't matter much. He is a weapon 100%. Yeah, that's another good point, is that the height really doesn't matter as much in the slot. So that's why he can play there. I didn't mean to talk about his height like it's a negative thing. The only reason I even really brought up his height was to try to show you how he would, how he looks next to like a Squirrel White, but also to tell you that the reason that he hasn't had as many touchdowns inside of USC's system is because he's almost running like outside wide receiver routes whenever he's going vertical. And they're not doing a very good job of just getting him isolated. They're not spacing things out enough. If you're going to go deep with wide receivers that are shorter, there needs to be better spacing. You see what I'm saying? Like they need to have that space so that they can make the catches down the field. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about the next player, Zachariah Branch's brother. And we can always come right back to him, y'all. But we will talk about Zion Branch. So these right here, again, like we talked about, the miles per hour, the speed. So we'll see Zion Branch is going to be at number 4. These are some of the other safety bodies that Tennessee has coming back next season. You can see the difference in the speeds. And this is going to be from their entire tenure in college football. We see that Jacoby Thomas would be the fastest inside of the room at 21.7 miles per hour. Then Christian Charles at 21.5. Then we have Andre Turrentine. And then right behind him, literally right in the middle, is Zion Branch at about 19.1. So this right here, to me, pretty much, this is how I feel about him just after watching film on him, is that he's he's about our average safety player. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of things that necessarily stand out to me. Excuse me, this is the Zachariah. Let me pull up his. Okay, so these are his, and you'll see some of him, as a run stopper. You'll see him some in coverage also. He's a player that I think, we talked before about wanting safeties that were good in man-to-man coverage. I think that he's looks pretty solid. The tight end from Penn State, he did a good job guarding him, and he's not an easy guard. He's like 6'6", 260 or something like that, and he runs really well. And he did a good job on him. They got a touchdown on him on one. It was like a little trick play with the crazy formation and stuff, but I think that he looks pretty solid in man-to-man coverage. He's more of a free safety where you're going to play him over the top. He looks, I think, really good doing that. His zone coverage looks good. He's not the twitchiest guy, so he's not going to be very explosive in and out of his breaks, but he can do some good things. Again, I think that he would be about average safety for us. I think that he could maybe come in and compete for some playing time. I don't think that he would be a surefire starter unless the staff just says, out the gate, hey, he's going to come in and he's going to start. I don't see that happening. I think that Andre Turrentine is probably going to be one of the starters. We also have, some of the underclassmen that I think have looked really good. They're only going to continue to get better. But then what happens with a guy like Jordan Thomas? Because he did play at Star. He missed all of last season with the season-ending injury, and now Boo's playing at Star. I think that Jordan Thomas isn't going to come back for his fifth year to play behind Boo Carter. So you might want to try to move him somewhere else like safety and see if he can, have a starting spot there. So safety is actually a spot where Tennessee's pretty deep at. Now, I don't know if Tennessee would try to push some people out because we do have to make room for Zion to come with his brother Zach, because they've already said that they want to play on the same team together. I don't know if Tennessee's going to be pushing people out or if we're just going to be moving bodies to some different spots, because it can't just be Boo Carter playing at the star spot. We'd have to have someone to at least rotate in with them like we did last season with Christian Harrison, who's no longer with this team. So what do we think about potentially, maybe, excuse me, putting Zion at the star position? Now, at 6'2", 210 pounds, understand this, y'all, and I don't think that I even talked about this, but he was a 4-star with, I think, every single side coming out of high school with on threes, where they kind of add up everybody's star ratings and, all that type of stuff. I think he was number 61. With some places, he was a top 60 player, but very, very good football player coming out of high school. Y'all just kind of looked at his film, some of the stuff that he can do. I think he can do some things well. I would maybe say, hey, we want to try to cross-train you at the star position, at all of the safety spots. Even though I do think he might be more of a safety, but give him some more options. We need that flexibility, and I think that would be cool, man. I don't think that he's going to hurt this team by any means by joining in. As you can see, he's a very solid football player, but I don't see him necessarily starting anywhere. So hopefully that's not going to be a deal breaker, because for us, it really is more about getting Zachariah. And if we get him, I think Tennessee's going to be in a tremendous spot moving forward. So let me get to some more of these chats because I would like to also hear y'all's thoughts on Zion Branch. I think he's a very good football player. Bobby A is saying his height concerns me. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, height should not. His height's not bothering me. I'm not concerned about his height. We're going to be fine there, because again, he's playing slot. Slots are typically going to be a little bit shorter. Now, Braylon Staley is 6 feet tall. We've got some other guys that are coming in that are underclassmen that could also play at the slot position that are going to be a little bit taller. But I think that they're going to have to kind of rotate in, because Zach Branch is he's different. He's kind of he's one of those West Coast guys. If you think back, and I'm gonna come back to you, D, but if you think back to some of the players like a Reggie Bush, how sudden Reggie Bush was, he's got some of that to him. If you think way back to a Peter Warrick, he's got a whole lot of that to him. Or Percy Harvin. I think Percy Harvin is a great comp. He's not as big as Percy Harvin. I think Percy Harvin was 6 feet tall, but he could be that sort of a player. He moves like that. You know what I'm saying? And Percy Harvin, he's not a West Coast guy. Neither is Peter Warrick from Florida State. But either way, y'all understand what I'm talking about, right? He's one of those types of players where he can do a lot of special things with the football in his hands, things that you just can't teach. So let me come back to you, D. So D is saying height and slide. Okay, my bad, y'all. I wonder if I'm going back and rereading some of these. All right, so CJ Roach is saying people asking about his height, like Squirrel White wasn't an 800-yard receiver a year ago. Yeah, the height thing, yeah, he's playing slot, y'all. And I know that this is some of this stuff I'm sure a lot of y'all probably already talked about, but I just want to make sure that I say this one more time. He's playing inside of the slot. Slot players are typically a little bit shorter in stature and they're a little bit shifty, but they are a nightmare to cover. If you ask any cornerback, I think on any level, what's the toughest guard? It's typically those smaller slot players because you put them in a spot where they have space. They can go either way, and they're very, very shifty. It's hard to stick with them. They don't have as big of a body for you to get your hands on them either. Those bigger body wide receivers, you can kind of jack them up. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be physical with them because they're a huge target. There's a lot of places you can put your hands at and kind of slow them down. So that's sometimes, it just all depends on the player. But I think that for the most part, the smaller slot wide receivers can be a more difficult guard than the bigger guys on the outside. From Bo Hunting, saying at D Taylor. Yep. So y'all on the same page. From the wise man saying, I hated to see Leacock go to begin with. Yeah, I did too. And I think that they really do need to try to reach out to him and just see if that bridge is fully burned. Also from the wise man, hands are what we have lacked the last couple of seasons. Yeah, we have had too many drops, and I don't know how that. I mean, look, I'll put all that stuff on the wide receiver coach, and actually, I do want to talk about. I want to talk about this guy from SC. Excuse me. Let me pull this up for y'all. I want to talk about him too, because excuse me. All right, so he's done some really nice things, and this is the crazy thing, y'all. Last time that we talked on Sunday, I said, man, look, I would love to go out and get USC's wide receiver coach. That was just from watching, just watching how their wide receivers move, watching how they play, because you can tell whenever an entire group is playing a certain way, that is 100% on the coaching. The same thing that the wise man was just talking about with all the drops. The drops were pretty consistent throughout this entire team. That goes to the coaching. This man right here, and I didn't know what his name was. I didn't know where he had been or nothing. But this is some of his resume, some of the players that he's coached, some of their accolades, just to name a few. And there are several more. Everywhere that he's been as a wide receiver coach, every offense that he's been a part of, the wide receivers have done tremendous things. Something else that I love about him is that, he coached with Mike Leach. Obviously, he's coaching right now with Lincoln Riley. He's been at a lot of really good places that just have explosive wide receivers and explosive offenses. Now, let me tell y'all what I've been hearing. Again, these are just rumors, so take this all with a grain of salt. Totally rumors. Insiders are not confirming any of this by any means. But what we've been hearing is that maybe there's been some talks behind the scenes with Heupel and Dennis Simmons, who right now is the wide receiver coach at USC. And, I don't know exactly if they would want to bring him in as a wide receivers coach. For me, bring him in as like a co-offensive coordinator. You know what I'm saying? Like bring him in as like we talked about, kind of like a gameplay manager or, something like that. Because listen, some of the things within USC's offensive scheme and from some of the other places that he's been at previously, if you add that with Josh Heupel, that's deadly. That's really what we need. Like a lot more of the drag routes, especially bringing in guys like Zach Branch, who, that's a lot of what he did at SC. We don't do a lot of that with our wide receivers, or at least we haven't. We haven't done over the past couple of seasons. Back in 21, 22, we did. We got to get back to that. But I think that he could help from that perspective. I don't know how realistic any of this stuff is. This is probably just a total dream. But man, I'm gonna tell you, I would most definitely try to go out and target Dennis Simmons with no question. No question. I would try to add him on to what we already have. Now, if there is an issue with Coach Pope, like we talked about, then maybe you can bring him in to do some of that. But I would think that he would probably only want to come to Tennessee if it's some sort of an upgrade with his title, with his role. That's why I'm saying you bring him in, have him oversee what the wide receivers are doing, which might cause some problems between him and Pope. This is a business. Y'all going to have to figure out how to coexist if this can happen. And then if this does happen, but I want somebody that can come in, a different pair of eyes from the outside. That would be beautiful, especially because obviously hopefully Zach Branch is close with him. Hopefully Zach Branch likes him because he is leaving SC. But if Zach Branch likes him, if Zion Branch likes him, if that sweetens up that deal for them, bring them on home. Bring them home, find a spot for them, make up a job title. It does not matter. I think that would be very important for this team moving forward. Now, let me get back to some more of these chats. And what have I missed right here? Okay, so I think right here from D. Taylor, say, okay, so I see y'all just fist bumping back and forth. Let's get to this from the Wise Man, also saying that we really need a 3-step drop package for protection failures. Yeah, so yeah, I think so too. Tennessee has to work a lot more within our quick game. We have to expand our quick game. We have to expand that in a major way. But we also have to go back to the 2022 being a little bit more creative with our vertical passing game as well. Get some more switch routes. Like, it's too much straight up and down. If we're going to be running vertical routes, we need to have some switches. You know what I'm saying? Bring back some more of that. But just stop being so straight up and down. It shouldn't even be. Oh, okay. That's what you're saying right here. Scenario. All right. But yeah, just don't be so straight up and down. But for sure, I think that the quick game, that's huge. Because it's not just about the underneath stuff. It's about the vertical stuff as well. Bobby A is saying, seems like Hyper's offense is more edge than slot. Right now it is. But think back to Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt played inside of the slot. Squirrel White, someone brought up earlier, 800-yard. What did he have an 800-yard season? I want to say that he did. In 2023, maybe he had a really good year, but that was playing inside of the slot. So the slot has really been where Tennessee has done a little bit more with. But we need to find ways to be explosive from the slot and from both outside spots as well. Because it can't just be about one spot. But yeah, we can scheme it up. Let me tell you, slot fade, slot wheels, switch routes, all of that type of stuff, that's deadly with some speed, with people who can make you miss. Let's come on down to detail, also saying, or just move the pocket more, rollouts and such. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't do that versus the Buckeyes. And I think we talked about that. Why not move the pocket? Roll out. It's just like we just got frozen. It's like we was almost shell shocked or something. Ball hunting 101. We need more than one look in the passing game for sure. Got to have some different bodies. Go Big Orange. Kyle Beach is saying still not knowing anything on Matthews yet has to be a good sign, right? I don't know. If you want to take it that way, I'm not saying not to, because you could be 100% right. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. For me, it kind of feels like, so I would say not hearing about him being in the portal, that's a great sign. That part of it is for sure a good sign. But not hearing that he's coming back, for me, and maybe I was just, maybe my timeline was off on how quickly things would work. That's not a good sign for me. But maybe, we just have to wait and see. But if he does hit the portal, though, y'all, I think that's a really bad sign. That's a very, very, very bad sign. So we'll just keep an eye out. I don't think anything has happened just yet. So we should be good. From Brent Williams is saying, always enjoy your content. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate that greatly. Saying, thank you for sharing your work. Vols needs to improve developing players. Yeah, we most definitely do. And thank y'all for tuning in for sure. Ball Hunting 101 saying, okay, at Cal. Let's get to this one from a new person, from Heatwave 251. They will sign with Texas Longhorns. Well, yeah, Texas is so people talked a lot about OSU spending all that money inside of the portal. I think that they were just, I think that Texas could probably outspend them if they really wanted to. I don't know how deep their pockets are. Oregon might be the same thing. They might have some very deep pockets, and they just, hey, look, we're going to go out and get whatever we need, and that's going to be it. But if you're talking about Zachariah going to Texas, I'm not going to say that he wouldn't. I'm not going to say that. I would just say look at the production from their wide receiver core along with their tight end this season. The tight end is the leading wide receiver in that offense, and they've got like 3 or 4 5-star wide receivers. So I think that that's something that you look to and you say, I don't know, because see, Tennessee didn't have that problem. Tennessee, what you will kind of like look at with our stats is it's pretty evenly spread out. It's like 5 or 6 wide receivers, tight end threats, whatever, that are all at about 300 yards, and several players with 2 touchdowns, and we have 2 players with more than 2. So one, Dante Thornton with 6, and then Miles Kitselman with 4. But I think that you can kind of see the vision a little bit better with Tennessee. With Texas, it's a head scratcher. It's a real head scratcher to me. How are they not utilizing their wide receivers a little bit better? You would think that they should be able to. And maybe Sark gets that going for the rest of the playoffs, or maybe they lose tomorrow, which I would not be surprised to see that happen. because I think that there's some things within Sark's offense that he needs to get fixed too. So it might kind of be, in some ways, you could maybe say that it's an even playing field with Tennessee versus Texas for Zachariah. Obviously he's more from that area. I don't know if he's from California or if he's from Vegas, but he's more, like West Coast Texas is closer to home for him. But I think that and I've said this a million times, y'all, if Tennessee wants to win a bidding war, we can win it. Nobody will beat us in an individual bidding war. Nobody will. Nobody will, because if it's somebody that we really want and need, we can take it to the max. And I think that we're prepared to do that. So I think that Texas could be in play here. I just think that if it's if Tennessee says, hey, everything is still checked off here with us and, Zachariah and his brother Zion, everything still looks good for us. Oh, well, we're going to do whatever it takes and you're going to come on home. That's where I think Tennessee's at with it. I don't even know if Texas even needs that, because they still got a lot of very talented wide receivers. So interesting point right there, though. I'm glad that somebody did actually bring that up. All right, let me see. Where is the next one? All right, so from Go Big Orange, Cal B saying, we got to know something by today, surely. I don't know. I don't know what the actual timeline is, because it's so, there's so many different variables to when that clock started ticking. It's 48 hours for Mike Matthews to get in after a certain point, and then it's 48 hours for Tennessee to get him into the portal after everything, after certain things have been done. So maybe today, I would hope that we can hear something today so that we know how to move either way. And hopefully it's positive news and Mike Matthews wants to stick around. But I can't call it, y'all. It could be later. I mean, this thing could drag on till like the end of the week. I don't know. From the wise man saying, Hypo will adjust his packages to what he has and the way he attacks to what players do best. 100%. But he has to adjust those routes to what defenses are doing against us. So I think that that's an excellent point. I think that what we need to get back to, y'all, is we're going to dictate what the defense is going to do based off of how we line up and based off of the routes that we can run. That's where you want to be. See, whenever you're dictating terms, now you're being successful. You can't live and die, which is what we did over the past couple of seasons, where teams are dictating to us what we're doing. That can't happen. We can't play into their hand. They need to play into ours. And if they don't want to play our hand, we have to make them play our hand. That's who Hyper really is, y'all. Like, that's who Hyper was, and he still is that person. We just kind of got away from a couple things. We're going to make a couple tweaks here and there with personnel, with some play calling, with different packages and things like that, and we're going to be just fine. From Bo Hunting saying that at Cal Money Talks, got a lot of coaches wanting him, I'm sure. From Bobby A. Okay. So let me see if I can get to some of these new ones. I typically don't even read these, y'all, before I actually read them off. So from Dakota Calfee, I hope that I pronounced that right, says Pope was highly sought after. He also developed Hyatt. Maybe he's too honest, and we got rid of a lot of the second, just like we got rid of a lot of the secondary last year. Hopefully, we will come out better. Trust the process. Go Big Orange. Hey, that's a very positive spin on it, and you could be 100% right. You could be 100% right. I don't know. I just think that at this point, it is kind of a bad look with some of the things that's going on. And I don't necessarily feel like the people who maybe could throw some water on that, I don't think that they're throwing as much water on it as they maybe could. Excuse me. Maybe they're throwing a little bit on there, but they're not fully coming out and saying, no, that's, at least I haven't seen that. I could be wrong. I haven't seen that personally. So it leads me to believe maybe there's a little something to it. But yeah, I like Coach Pope. I just want to see him play his players. I think that if he loses Mike Matthews, that might be a change that I would make just off of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not one to call for people's jobs, but that might just do it. That might do it for me. Unless it was something that was just completely out of his control, which that's possible too. Let's get to Dakota Calfee again, saying, got the chance to watch Boo in person at Bradley Central. He is an alum and he's special. Yeah, thank you for adding that. Yeah, he looks special. P and I will actually watch some of Bradley Central's full games just to get a look at a couple of our players that were coming from that school, and obviously Boo being one of them. But yeah, you could tell. I mean, it's very obvious. He's got that suddenness. He's got that twitchiness. He's a certain type of athlete that you don't see every day. So I think the Boo is going to do some. I mean, he's already done some very nice things. I think that he will continue to do nice things for Tennessee. Lamons Jr., Go Big Orange. What's going on, Lamons? Happy to see you in here. Go Big Orange, Kyle B saying, right, they've had plenty of time to negotiate a deal now. Yeah, and see, that's the part to me. I don't know how long all that stuff takes, but I mean, it really shouldn't take too long, you know. But what typically takes a while though is whenever an offer goes out, you gotta mull it over, you gotta crunch the numbers, then you come back with the counter. Then they come back with their counter to the counter. And but the waiting portion of it, I think, is what usually takes the most amount of time. So they could still be going back and forth. I mean, I do just get the deal done. Like if it's Tennessee, that's just give him what he's worth. Like, what is he asking for? Give it to him. See what I'm saying? Like, just give him what he's that part of it to me. I thought that would have been done at this point, you know. But it feels like it's too much back and forth, and I don't know. But it does sound like Mike Matthews is still talking with Tennessee, so that is definitely a very, very good thing. From Kalen saying that Branch over Squirrel White. Yeah, I would say that from top to bottom. Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. And listen, I love Squirrel White. Please don't get that twisted. I love Squirrel White. He was a dog. He did a lot of great things for Tennessee. But I mean, there's just no denying it. You know, Zachariah Branch is just different. Not to say the Squirrel's not good. He's very good. I think the Squirrel could be an NFL wide receiver. But you know, I think that Branch is like a first. You know, he's like a potential first round pick, or first round pick, sort of a wide receiver in the NFL. And then Kyle Beach is also saying, I mean, we would be the number one wide receiver next year for this team. Oh, okay. He said, I mean, he would be the number one wide receiver next year for this team. Are you talking about Mike Matthews or are you talking about Branch? Because I do think that Mike Matthews would be wide receiver number one. So, yeah, that should be a reason that he should want to come back. And listen, y'all, if we get all of these guys, you know, if we can bring in Branch and his brother and obviously be able to hold on to Mike, our wide receiver room looks good. It's going to be some young players, going to be some true freshmen that I think will need to step up and play. But man, if we just add one more player to that room, all of a sudden, does it look better than it did last season? I don't know if you could say that from a sheer. Maybe you could say that. I mean, maybe you could say that. So that's a great place for Tennessee to be. We just gotta close it up. And look, y'all, we're still very early on with this Zachariah Branch stuff, so don't take it like everything is set in stone. I'm telling you how I feel. I do feel like he will be coming up for a visit right now. That's the point that we're at. We're going all out to get him and his brother on a visit, and I think that will happen. We'll probably hear something about that. Probably, I mean, I'm not even going to put a date on it, but I would say pretty soon we're going to hear something about that. Bring him up, show him how Tennessee is, show him Knoxville. How many people have you ever heard of coming on a visit to Knoxville and not just being blown away? You know, even in the offseason, how many people? I don't know if I've ever, as long as I've been covering this stuff, which is for my whole life, or not covering it, but as long as I've been following it, which is, for my whole life, I've never seen anyone come away from Tennessee not impressed. Everybody. Even if players go to a different school, they talk about it. Man, Tennessee's different. We've seen that several times. So I think that them coming up on campus will be huge. If we get them on campus, I don't know, they might leave without, saying, hey, we're coming to Tennessee, but they'll probably know, hey, we coming to Tennessee, bro. Like, they'll probably look at one another just like that. So I think that that's pretty much all that we're waiting on there. And, just as far as Mike Matthews, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. He's probably back here in Georgia. I should see if I could try to set up a meeting with him, even though it's on a holiday. I should see if I can maybe try to have a sit down with him and see exactly where things is at. Maybe I'll work on that after this video. But let's get to a few more of these, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you all my picks real quick. I'm going to get to this one right here from Kalen, also saying a lot of people tripping over the portal, but I think Heupel is being smart and not recklessly spending money. Yeah, so I think that what they're doing is they're holding on to what they have first and foremost. They're saying, okay, what does our roster look like before we go try to add anything to it? You got to get that part of it figured out first, obviously, right? Which I think that we've got. I mean, at this point, we know everyone that's going to be leaving, so that part of it's solid. We don't know for sure if Mike Matthews is going to be coming or staying, but we feel pretty confident that he's a player that we want to have come back so we can allocate as many funds as we need to that. Now we're looking at the roster and said, okay, what else do we need? And then I think this month, like the insiders have said several times, this month, Tennessee is going to be very aggressive. We're going to be spending money. I think we'll see a whole lot of names, and it should be a whole lot of fun for us, y'all. But let me go on ahead and let me get to some of my picks for today, okay? And we will end on this. So, number one, we got Alabama versus Michigan coming up in about 30 minutes. I hope that y'all can watch this game, man. I don't know who I want to win, honestly speaking. Alabama is favored by 16.5 points. The over-under is 44.5. The game's going to be in Tampa. So, should be some good conditions for everybody. What's the man? 77 degrees, boy. Whew, hey, let me tell y'all, Tampa. I don't consider Tampa South Florida. For me, South Florida is Broward and Dade County. That's South Florida for real, and it's probably like still in the 80s down there. If y'all haven't ever visited down there, go ahead and do your favor and just take the visit. Just take the visit. But in this game, I'm going to say that Alabama wins. I don't really want them to win. I don't really want Michigan to win either. I think that Michigan intentionally fed Tennessee some poor information versus the Buckeyes because they want to keep Ryan Day's job. They want Ryan Day to stay because he can't beat them. So I think that they gave us some bad information. Not to say that was a difference in us winning and losing, because I know that the staff is going to do what they do anyway. But I am going to pick Alabama. I'm not going to pick them to cover, though. I am going to pick them to win. I think that they win the game by about 10 points. Now, the next one at 2 o'clock on CBS, we have Louisville versus Washington. This game is going to be in El Paso, Texas. And right now, Louisville is only favored by 1 point. Over under is 49.5. I've seen Washington play some. Wasn't very impressed. Seen Louisville play some. Wasn't very impressed with them either. I could see Washington winning this game. I could. They're 6-6 on the season. Man, every time that I've picked Louisville, I feel like they've let me down, but I'm going to go ahead and pick them again. Let me also tell y'all this real quick, because Washington, for any of y'all that play EA Sports College Football 2024 or 25, whatever it is, I was watching my nephew Bray play this, and he was playing with Washington, and this was like, last week or something, and man, I'm looking at their playbook, and I said, dude, I would love for Tennessee to run some of this stuff. So if any of y'all do play that game, if you want to see a really nice playbook with just like a lot of different misdirection stuff and a lot of crossing patterns and all that, look at Washington's playbook on that game. But I am going to go ahead and pick Louisville to win. Now, the next one, I can't wait for this one. I think this one might be maybe the game of the day at 3 o'clock. South Carolina versus Illinois. This game is going to be in Orlando. And right now, South Carolina is favored by 9 points. The over-under is 49.5. I am going to go with South Carolina to win this, and I'm going to pick them to cover. Not that I really want them to win, y'all. I'm past the whole SEC stuff. I want them all to lose, okay? I want everyone to lose, because right now there might be competition for some of the players that Tennessee wants. But I do think that South Carolina is going to beat Illinois, and I think that they will, again, cover the spread. I had them winning that one by about 2 touchdowns. Next, at 3:30, we have Baylor versus LSU. The game's going to be in Houston, so that's a great spot for both fan bases. And the spread is going to be Baylor is favored by 3.5 points. The over-under is 63.5. Man, I'm going to go ahead and pick Baylor to win this, just because Brian Kelly can't coach. You know what I'm saying? Brian Kelly is I don't know how he squandered his way all that talent. I don't believe in LSU. So I'm going to pick Baylor to win this game. LSU is one of the SEC teams that I would typically cheer for. So LSU, Auburn, we tend to hate the same. Georgia Tech's not an SEC school, but Georgia Tech would be another one. But Auburn hates Alabama and they hate Georgia. So I feel like we're kind of on the same team there. LSU hates Alabama. But anyway, I would typically be going for LSU, but right now I'm not. So let's talk about the last one right here. This is going to be the first playoff game, y'all, of the second round, and it's coming up today at 7:30. Penn State versus Boise State. And the game's going to be in Glendale, Arizona. Penn State's favored about 11.5, and the over-under is 54.5. Now, I have Penn State winning this one. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that. I'm actually, just so that y'all know, Penn State is probably the team that I'm cheering for throughout the playoffs, because y'all know that my brother played for Coach Franklin, and, we really love Coach Franklin. I think he's a really, really good dude. But I'm hoping he can get over that hump, man. If Tennessee's not in this thing, SEC teams lose, I don't care. Especially Georgia. I'm going for Notre Dame versus Georgia too, just to let y'all know. But so, yeah, I am going for Penn State. I think that they will win this game. I would love to see them win this by a pretty sizable margin. But let's just, y'all just stay healthy and all that type of stuff, and advance on to the next round. But that right there is going to be it for this one, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and kind of get back to what I was doing and just get ready for these ball games and all that type of stuff. But I hope that y'all do have a great New Year's Eve. I hope that you bring in the New Year's just the way that you wanted it. I hope that you finish off this year the best way possible. And I hope that, the start to next year in 2025 is the best that you've had yet. Everyone, please do be safe. No drinking and driving. Y'all already know, call an Uber, call a Lyft. Everyone get back home safe, but that's going to do it for us. Please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We might see y'all a little bit later on tonight. Thanks. Peace.